I honestly, it was just amazing.
Order. We do have a quorum with everyone here, so Suzanne, would you like to please?
It's to the flag of the United States of America, and to republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, to justice for all.
Item of business is introduction of visitors. We have Casey Elliott here from Tribune, John Hanson from the BFT representative, and Dan McGee from his owner's rep business, Bone Mine. What is it? Mining?
Building, mining,
Building, Mind and Body. There you
mouthful.
go. Dan, why don't you come sit up here if you want. You're going to be talking to us anyway. You sit where Rob. Visitors, I guess, do you want any public comment or conversation from anybody? If not, we'll go right into the action items. Josh, go ahead with the first one if you want.
So, one, board consideration and possible action to create out of state and overnight trip for students who wish to participate in the FFA National Convention. That's later this month. I'm late in the month of October. And so I talked to Nick Rigo, our FFA advisor, and anytime there's an overnight trip or out of state, in this case it's both, it needs board approval. And so this has, just historically, this has been a trip that the board has approved in the past.
Is he taking the shoe and say?
A bit separate. I'm gonna say it's close to 20, high teens, close to 20.
Wow.
Awesome.
Been
I move to approve the out-of-state overnight trip for FFA National Convention.
moved and seconded to approve the out-of-state overnight trip to the National Convention for FFA. Any discussion?
I just question, didn't we already approve this last, like May?
I thought we did too, but
Because he wanted to get approval so he could get better rates on airlines. So just questioning that.
Or did he already do that one?
That's a good question.
I think we might have, but I guess it doesn't hurt to do it again.
Yeah.
He came and asked me, so that's why I put it down.
Sure.
Maybe he's just being doubly sure.
I do kind of remember a conversation about wanting to book stuff ahead of time, and slot in some rates and stuff. Yeah. So good. Well, we definitely did
That was very impressive.
All those in favor, say aye.
4.2, board consideration and possible action to hire Dan McGee building line and body as the district's owner representative to manage the Visa building repair plan.
I'll say I can't say enough good about Dan. What he's done, he came in with a bad situation when NE 45 had lost their head guy and Williams Consulting had quit, and Dan came in and picked up the ball for us and has done super, and the way he led us through the mediation deal was phenomenal. So
I would say we represent the university use as standards. I highly recommend that as
I worked with him at the YMCA. He was absolutely outstanding there.
Doesn't anybody have anything bad? Yes.
you didn't eat any pizza.
So do we just make that motion that we hired Dan McGee as the district's owner representative for the Mean Fair project?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to hire Dan McGee as the owner's rep for this next process of our project. Is there any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? This is unanimously.
2.3, board consideration and possible action to solicit qualifications and proposals of architectural firms via a public RFQ process, or select and negotiate directly with an architectural firm for the Visa building repair project. Two options there to consider.
Dan, you're kind of up if you want to kind of talk about it, maybe kind of explain to us what you've done and where you think we are.
Okay. So through this process, there's one thing that's nice about the state of Montana is attorneys and architects can be direct select. You don't necessarily have to go out for an RFQ. So that's why that's either or. Okay, so the district has had, NE 45 was our architect elected for all of the district. Throughout the process, I think unfortunately they were dealt a difficult hand with the general contracting partner that was hired initially. So I feel confident that there's knowledge there that's valuable to the district long term. But also I've talked to other architects too that would be interested in soliciting, responding to qualification requests. So the two paths are different. We could go out and just go direct select somebody, or we can go through that process. Difference is we can go start negotiating now, try to get a proposal so that we can get started a little bit quicker. I looked at, went through schedule, and actually visited with Swank Enterprises who, wherever there might be some other opportunity to make a request from the board on that matter. I can touch on later, but talk a little bit about schedule of, all right, how would this work with school in session? And really a lot of the major repairs are going to be associated with windows and then the shop side of the building. So the south end where, we're not currently meeting energy code because of lack of insulation. So a lot of that work can be happening during school, obviously if there's roto hammering and coordination of schedules to make sure we're not disrupting classes, but they don't have to necessarily be inside the building right away. But getting documents far enough to where we can actually bid these early in the year would be an advantage, just so that we take advantage of it. Or we beat any kind of price hikes. A lot of those happen late April, early May in anticipation of the summer delivery. So if we can kind of accelerate, get ahead of that, get good numbers early in the year, get that stuff contracted, there's some advantages to hopefully buy some more work, get as much and get that all complete, and then maybe have some funds to do any other work that the district deems they needs to get done. So I'm confident in both paths. I have had a conversation, like I said, with several local Missoula firms, probably smaller ones that are going to be a little bit more willing to come for a project of this size. So, I'm kind of looking at, we're going to be in that $1 million range. That's not a ton of fees for somebody to travel from Missoula. But, I've also talked to 45 and they're wanting to see this project through. I think, again, I feel strongly that different general contractor, we probably wouldn't have been in the situation that we were in. So, feel confident that, not saying that, again, not going back to, not that I don't have faults, but I would be able to hopefully manage that differently and control and create a better outcome. So that's the reason it's kind of worded the way it is. RFQ process would be, if that's what the board decides, I would draft and prepare a RFQ document to put as an action item for the 20th to go out. And again, we can go out to select architects, or we can broadcast it on the Plan Exchange. And then every design firm that gets access to the Montana market would have, then we could also put a legal ad in the local paper for that as well. We'd have to do it on 2 consecutive weeks, 3 times. And then we would come together at another meeting, to do interviews or use qualifications to select. There again, then it's going back to the point of then I would begin the negotiation process, get the proposal from them for the scopes that we define, and that would all be laid out in the RFP. So they know what they're getting into. So most likely that will take, so from Monday, we could get it advertised as early as Wednesday. So maybe second, and then we'd have a couple weeks. So we hope to get somebody so that in the November board meeting, we can get somebody on board at the fastest during that process. If we went ahead and said, hey, let's go ahead and stay on the horse we have, I would leave tonight. I'd go to Bozeman, develop a scope, get a proposal, negotiate with them right now to deliver you guys a potential cost to be approved at the 24th. So we could gain maybe a month of design time. Then I can do the qualifications, get a contractor selected before the new year, and then they can start figuring out early in 2026. Those are the steps that, no.
And if we did go, with any 45, not that money is a factor, but yet it is, how much cheaper would it be to go with any 45 where they already have the plans and know everything that's been going on? Do you have any idea on that?
I would imagine, so architects will start off, if you ask them, they'll say 10%. And then we kind of define what the scope is. Smaller projects like this, they're going to start creeping up to 12 to 15, try to get 12 to 15%. I think that you're going to have probably about a 5% advantage on somebody new coming in and trying to learn what the project is and really understand.
Around $50,000 then roughly.
Yeah, it's kind of where, I'd like to keep them under 50 is what my goal would be, is to really define the scope in a way that getting a good qualified general contractor on board early enough where maybe the design doesn't have to be that robust, because there is going to be a lot of, all right, how are we going to attach whatever this scheme looks like? And I would imagine in the design process, we'll have a building meeting of some sort, whether it's a committee, because obviously we're going from a masonry building and we're having to do something to the exterior to add that insulation back. So is that metal, insulated metal panels? Is it some kind of a combination of different framing with different materials so that we can get that? Those are some things that then the contractors can come on board and say, hey, here's the material we used. I can get this cheaper than what you're currently designing. Here's the pros and cons. Present that back to the committee and say, are we comfortable with a metal skin on that building? And then, because obviously the community paid for a masonry building, and it's going to be hard to go back and look at, right now it looks like metal building. So there's architecturally, we want to make sure it's a good design, driving their costs down so that we can afford to maybe find a nicer solution as well. And I think there would be probably a financial benefit to know somebody that can hit the ground with already ideas of the solution versus somebody coming in and asking to learn it. They do have a small firm in Missoula that has worked on the university. that is interested and would be willing to work with the district, however, probably could get her in a similar price range, but she's gonna have a lot of students. But there's people out there that want to work in the community because of the university and getting to know people. So I don't worry too much about getting responses. I just don't know where they can come from.
What about the money that NE 45 still owes us from the original remodel project?
That would be something that we would look to negotiate. So if we were in, that 45 to 50 range, I'd say, well, we'll go ahead and if you want to do that as a deduct, as your commitment that you've already made to the district, to see if we could drive that down to 35. Yeah.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Do you, in your role, do you have any concerns about NE 45 as someone who has worked on this project to date, having preconceived notions or maybe not? Thinking about, like they already have an answer in mind and not thinking about the possibilities or the options. Is that anything that you're concerned about with them?
No, during the walkthrough we had on trying to figure out the building, they had already realized, hey, there's some things with these windows that maybe they were willing to come to the table and help the district fund some of those things. So I know that they thought about the window solutions, the skinning, they put a scope together. This was the first, when we were just finishing the BW Lodge, so that had been 22, 23,
21.
21. I have lots, but they developed, hey, here's a masonry option, here's whether it's brick or a block, metal insulated panels. Do we go to the inside to do print? So they had several ideas or concepts.
Okay.
And then that's where the initial pricing started. We were at all the way from 900 down to like $400,000 each. I don't think they would push back on us if we said, we need to try to find maybe we frame it and we put a thin, veneer brick on it, and we can get that solution. So we have a similar look. Yeah. I think that, and again, we drive that as the owner. I help you guys voice what you want. And then we kind of, not that we force their hand, but it all comes down to price too. So if they may have a solution that's a $2 million solution that we can't afford. So it's going to be also that we're going to have to be comfortable with a solution, we can afford to build. Good question.
So I'm clear, you say going with NE 45, save us a month or so?
Yeah, it would save us probably minimum a month and a half.
Or again, from what you said, if we could save that month and a half, we might get a cheaper bid from contractors because they would be more hungry the sooner we get to
Yeah.
that, possibly.
Yeah, and my conversation with Swank, who again, I think did a fabulous job on the PW Lodge project. They've got a couple of projects going on with the university currently that timing wise, they're going to be kind of getting to the end of. So there could be some advantages in for not paying for remobilization. They can keep that crew here. They're not having to set trailers down. They've already got that person that can stay right into this project. So Shane Austin was our PM on that project, who I spoke with, and he's like, we'll do whatever, one, they thank you guys for the nice, compliments from your attorney, Brad Brown. But wants a working in the community and will be responding to whatever we put out there, which is great. And the earlier we can get them on board, then it can help drive the concepts quicker so that we burn less fees on the architectural side. And no matter who it is. We need to have a minimum scope to go through the selection process for a general contractor because it's a qualification and a proposal phase. So that proposal phase, we need to have some information so that they can give us an idea of what they think the costs are. Not that that's the sole reason to select somebody, but it's a step in the process. And that's usually a 5 to 6 week process that we would try to make it as fast as we could so that they're on board and a part of the design solution to really kind of keep our costs in check.
And do you see any disadvantages to going with the need? Again, maybe perception.
Perception's probably the big one. Yep, you know, and through the, you know, the legal process, I don't think that we, and I'll use that as, I mean, obviously I work on your guys' behalf, so I don't have any authority to make decisions or on your guys' behalf, but there was never anything negative put out about 45. It was really just the lack of performance of the building. So that would be probably the biggest is that, you know, well, geez. And then if something happened and it turned out not great, how does that appear for us? Fool me once, kind of a negative. So that's probably the really the only qualifications, quality. I mean, they're as good as anybody else in the state, yeah.
And from the time you came on board until we were finished with BW Lodge, did you have any problem with any 45 at all?
Well, the principals were engaged. They had a good staff, Martina, that was their staff person that ran their contract administration. She was great. The owners would step up and probably be more involved for this solution to make sure it's right, which is a good thing. We won't get there, you know, CD or E spot, we'll get the A spot. And I think we would get that. No, I'm not saying that we wouldn't get that from anybody else. So don't think that. You know, I would work, you know, like, you know, the larger firms, you know, A&E, Blue Page Warner, Cushing Terrell. Those guys are gonna probably struggle with, because they're so big. I think their fees are gonna be, you know, 45 still. They're a smaller design firm. So they're gonna be probably come in and be really more efficient. But we'll need a structural engineer, you know, and you know, that's nice. They'll go out and hire a consultant. Some of those other bigger firms have them all in-house. And so their fees tend to reflect that. So Intuitive, I mentioned in Missoula, you know, 45. There's a smaller firm up in Helena that I'm sure would be interested in looking at it. So there's folks out there that are all qualified to do it. Then it kind of comes down to what our gut feel is. Because we're not asking necessarily for a cost right away. So it would be a select them, then negotiate, and then get them going. Good question, because that's my,
Yeah.
you know, but like I said, we haven't said anything negative about it. It's, you know, I mean, it's a beautiful building. It's just unfortunate it was, you know, the construction quality was not what we hoped for.
What are some of the other board members' thoughts? Or Josh, do you have any thoughts?
I just say, Ken and I had a chance to kind of just chat individually before the meeting and really a tough decision. You know, there's, I guess the choice comes down to moving forward quickly, being patient, and what our options are out there. And realizing that there are pros and cons to each of those, right? If we wait a little bit, we might lose out some contractors. So, I mean, it's almost a crapshoot. Again, I think Dan's reputation speaks for itself. And so I would defer to Dan and any recommendation that he would make, I would support, is that he knows as our owner rep that his name would be on the line too, and I can appreciate that.
If we're able, with any 45 and gaining them out there and, you know, working it with Swank, essentially. We're probably needing a couple of months on the back end too of the finished product, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it could be 3-4 months.
Yeah,
Not that we want to rush through this, but this has been going on for half a decade.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's time that this new board member, this gets buttoned. The community's tired of hearing about it. I don't think I know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but to me, saving and yeah, and is qualified certainly. Swank, there's really nobody better. I mean, there's the big 4 or 5 in the state. I mean, they're one of them.
Yep.
And so to me, getting both of those two on board and maybe finishing this 4 months and saving some bucks along the way, I think to me, it's no brainer, but again, I'm new to the board, but I would defer to those that know builders better than you obviously, and but
Yeah, so the exterior fix would be half of the wall, shooting building, and it would be when they pull those windows out, that'll happen the first part of June, soon as students are out. Then they'll be ready with all the product that they need to do those fixes. So we're buying that, knowing that we're not starting somebody in May. We're actually starting probably in March, and we're out of your hair before students are back.
yeah, they might not get done before students get back the other way around.
Right. That's because they're gonna, pulling those windows is gonna be a big effort, because on the classroom side, those are all wood frame walls, insulated sheetrock. Well, when we pull those windows out, we're gonna be extending sills. We also need to open those walls up to see if there's any water damage. Is there molds or things that, because we couldn't test those. We didn't open those walls up to see if there were failures there. Now, the sides of the building they're on, the ones I would have the most concern would be this western one classroom. The north, I don't think probably had as much direct rain and wind. And then the east side with those homes that are on it, they're, probably a little less concerning that there would be, but we would probably, as we pull those out, see if there's any indication of water and start to explore down. So there's some sheetrock repair, painting that would all happen that early summer. But the rest of it, we'd be ready to just pull it into the shop, extend whatever we need to those window openings and button up so they're out of here before students come back.
Yeah, and I think, there's a definite advantage getting the contract together with the architect as early as possible, because you guys are actually making the repairs up 3 times, especially on a remodel. Not everything the architect draws up works well if they open a remodel, so we have a little more time to have those 2 parties collaborating, I guess. Be nice. Come up with good ideas and.
Well, I think Swank's a great company. They've done a lot of work in the university system. I think they're possibly gonna be done with Block Hall next spring, aren't they?
They're gonna be done early. They've done it.
There's nothing but good about them up there. So I'm kind of like Phil. I'm tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, and Swank would have to still go through a qualifications and proposal step. But they're ready for as soon as it hits the street. When I'm working with state to understand how quickly we can do it and what amount of scope definition are they gonna need to be able to formulate a proposal part of their response. Because it's gonna be broadcast and, others, I would imagine some smaller general contractors would poke at it, not necessarily the big guys, just because of the size of it. Then again, I start to go, okay, well, because the other side of it too is I'll develop a proposal on, hey, this is what I think it's gonna take for me, and I've got somebody that I have to kind of stand on a lot more, and that's more time that I need to be on site. If I've got somebody that's qualified, with the BW Lodge, I was able to go from instead of weekly on-site OAC meetings because of the technology they use for photos, tracking the project. I was able to do a remote meeting and then do it every other. So it saved dollars on my fees to where I didn't have to necessarily drive down every, so those are all positive things. When you get a bigger firm, some of those smaller firms don't have that technology it's because it's very expensive, the software that a lot of them use. There's some advantages of, knowing that they're still interested and want to be part of the solution. But I don't know we're willing to be aggressive with it to make sure that we can get as much scope. Get that fixed, and then any other things that I know that we left We had as alternates on the VW Lodge project or part of the kind of list in the bond, that maybe we can tap some of those other things. If they are still a priority.
Sure.
And to most of the architectural firms that you know of and in consultation with, we have a good working relationship with a contractor like Swank.
Yes, yeah, all the firms that I know that do school work are used to working with all of the big guys. Martell's another good one that, that Bozeman market, they may be interested, but I think they're buried in the Bozeman. I don't know that they would pull off for this. But all the firms know who they work with, who they have to work with. And the pre-construction piece that Swank can offer their head estimator up in Dallasville would be integral to this. They work with 45, so they know one another, and they work with Fishing Terrell, they work with New Page Warner, and so they're again, they're all comfortable with working with somebody like a Swank.
I guess my thoughts along the same lines as Bill and Cole and Mike. Of course, I was involved from the get-go, and the few little ripples we had in the road with NE 45, I mean, they were going through some problems too. They lost their head guy, and they were willing to fix this out here and did it quickly and without any arguments or whatever, and admitted that they'd made some mistakes. And once Dan came on board and we were in the process of winding down with the VOAG building and starting on the VW Lodge building, in my opinion, NE 45 was excellent to work with. Ben was, and that Martina that came in was just outstanding, I felt. So, both from our experience with them, plus from saving money, plus the time factor, plus maybe saving money on a contractor coming on earlier. I mean, I guess personally, I would prefer to just go with NE 45 and speed up the process. How do the rest of you guys feel?
Feels like they're highly motivated to make this right.
I
Because their
think
name's
so.
on it, which I would be too.
Yeah.
I would want to make it right so that my name is, with a project that ended on a positive note. I think there's something of value in that. I don't think they will let this fail, personally. Mhm.
Is you okay?
Yeah, I am.
Well, you okay, Josh?
Yep.
Oh. So what do you want us to do, Dan? Make a motion to allow you to contact NE 45 directly and start working with them?
Yep, start negotiations, and my goal would be to be able to present you guys back a proposal with the defined scope for your next board
On the
meeting.
20th?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm sure good with that. If everyone else is, if somebody would make a motion, we can go ahead.
I would make a motion that Dan can negotiate directly with NE 45 on the Visa building for the repair project.
Second. They've been moved and seconded to give Dan the authority to meet with NE 45 to start the proposal to get us going and have something back by the 20th of October. Any discussion from anyone? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
We need to continue with
I
4.4.
don't think so,
No,
Dan.
no.
No, that took care of that, I think. So. Well, good. Dan, I appreciate you coming down and
Listen, is there, I have one comment.
Certainly.
A request for the board. As I mentioned with Brad Brown, he had sent an email thanking East Rank and Shane Austin for putting the budgets together. I'd love to be able to send them a formal thank you from the board, just as a first step. I mean, they did that in really short order,
Yeah,
ordered
they did.
out a lot of information, and it just really helped. And, and even if it's, we can do it down the road, but it's just something I've been thinking about just as a thank you for their efforts.
can you do that on our behalf?
I can draft one and then I would send it through, have you guys,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
and that would go a long way from there.
Yeah, they did that within a couple of weeks, didn't they?
Yeah,
When they
yeah,
got
it
this
was-
Taylor and Associates
Yep.
expert report.
Yeah, we had about 14 days to do it, and there was just a written definition of it, and there was a lot of little pieces that they had to go in and did a great job on budgeting, had a great full schedule of values, so. And we could pick it apart pretty easy if we needed to. So,
No, I think that's great. Everybody else okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah, they really helped us a bunch. Anything else?
I would just say, you know, good job getting it done. I think it's the best.
Yep.
Steps forward for the district.
Well, now we're looking at positive things now from here on out, you know, so. Taxpayers can get what they passed the bond issue for, you know, by the time we're done here, we hope so.
Yep.
And like Dan says, maybe we can try to do some things at the BW Lodge that we ran out of money on. We could maybe do that concession booth. Some things like that. I did talk to Pierce Rouse about that incidentally, and he said that that brick wall is a phony wall.
yeah, it's not structured.
I guess
Yep.
it's not structural at all. In fact, he said they put the brick on it in the mid-80s, probably
Oh, really?
15 years after the building had been built. I had kind of thought it was a structural wall, so that probably would be the way to go, would be to go out.
Yeah.
Would be kind of neat. So anyway, that may or may not happen, but be nice to get it done if we could. So. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board or anybody have anything? Dan, any other comments?
No, thank you for trusting me, and I'm looking forward to getting this thing. Let's fun.
Yeah, we laughed when we were doing the mediation. It's almost time to remodel the building. Anyway, if somebody would make a motion to adjourn until October 20th, take a motion.
Second.
Being moved and seconded to adjourn. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed. Casey, did you have any questions? I'm sorry. Yes.